Hey, what's going on, everybody? Max here with BB, and today for 10 Minutes Max, we're going to go well over 10 minutes, guys. Apologies in advance to those of you that like shorter videos. This is not going to be one of those, all right? The market is at a very, very important kind of fork in the road, which we need to properly set the stage for. And today's video is going to be about my top meme coin picks. Yes, some of you may be rolling your eyes, being like, Max, we get it. We know which memes you like. Look at the art behind me. But I'm going to talk about some other ones that are, yes, in addition to the artwork behind me, the Boys Club, of course. Some other memes out there that have really caught my attention, either from a standpoint of I'm positioning in them, or they're actually giving me a lot of signal, kind of hinting where the broader market's going to go, guys. And I just think that given where I'm going to contextualize where the market is, the Bitcoin market, altcoin market, meme market, this is going to be a nice kind of refresher video on where everything that I cover on a daily basis is at. We're going to be looking at a lot of the USD pairs. We're going to be looking at a lot of the pair charts and really kind of coming full circle and painting a comprehensive picture on some of the top meme coin / altcoin plays that I am watching right now for this next phase of the cycle, guys. Before we get into it, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you guys are new here. And don't forget, if at any point during the video I show you something on the BB terminal and you're like, that's sick, I would love to use that, check out the first link in the description below or go to bbterminal.com, guys. We just launched our brand new DEX feature, guys. It's basically DEX Screener, but a better version. We added custom scripts, custom functionality, things that you can only get here through the BB terminal, guys. And again, no sign up required. Like literally, you don't even need to put in an email. You just go to the website, click the page, and you're using it. So anyways, let's not waste any more time waffling. Let's dive into it. So first things first, I said we needed to properly contextualize where the market is at. So we're going to start with that. And again, we're already 2 minutes in. I tend to be a little bit long-winded. It is what it is, okay? My style of content is very long formatted, and it's certainly not for the impatient. But I promise if you stick around, it will be worth the watch, okay? So this is going to be well over 10 minutes. This will probably be, I'm guessing, 45 to an hour at least. But strap in, guys. So first thing we need to do is we need to look at Bitcoin dominance, okay? Now, I figure most of you that, watch our channel regularly are familiar with what Bitcoin dominance is. But for those that don't know what it is, you can go to TradingView, you can type in BTC.D. And what this is it's basically it's a percentage. Okay, so if you look at the y-axis, you'll see that it's not like 100,000 or 2,000. It's a percentage. So right now we're at 64.48%. It's what percentage of the crypto asset class that Bitcoin represents. Now, why do we care about this? Well, when this chart is going up, like it has been since, since it basically put in its low time frame pivot in 2022, but even going further back into May of 2021, when this chart goes straight up in a straight line, it means that Bitcoin is gaining market share against altcoins, meaning it's Bitcoin season, meaning that it's very, very, very difficult to outperform Bitcoin. You're probably better just holding Bitcoin. Now, granted, I've been holding a lot of altcoins, and so have a lot of you guys that have actually outperformed Bitcoin, but this is the basket. This is Bitcoin against just the basket, right? It's everything. So this chart has been straight up in a straight line for multiple years, but I am starting to see the first signs of distribution here as of recent on the Bitcoin dominance chart. Now, something to note about the Bitcoin dominance chart. This chart does not go down when the market goes down, because think about it like this. When Bitcoin pukes, right? When Bitcoin pukes, typically it will puke less percentage drawdown than your altcoins. So if Bitcoin goes down 10%, altcoins will go down 20. If that's the case, then Bitcoin dominance is going to go up. It's going to gain market share against altcoins. So when this chart starts to go down, it's incredibly rare and unique. It's incredibly rare. We could maybe find a couple instances in its entire history. When this chart goes down, the market goes up, and it's led primarily by large cap altcoins, okay? So this is a very bullish looking setup. I view this as a range. So range high, mid range, range low. We have a diagonal line right here. This is our trend. I have this blue line drawn, or this blue box drawn. I think when we lose this blue box, which is like 63, 60, 63, 62% at the very lowest, like kind of down into here, I think you could very easily make the case for, a visit to the range low, because if this is a range, you've got a deviation of your range high. Ranges love symmetry. I could see us coming back down into the range low. Now let's just do a quick little study here. Okay. Here's Bitcoin. We'll put the candles on for Bitcoin here. Okay. Now, when the market goes down, like let's take a look at just a prominent puke from, last summer. Okay. Market goes down over here. When the market goes down, when Bitcoin takes a dive, Bitcoin dominance goes up. Okay. It goes up. Now, what we've seen in the past is when alt season really begins, what you will see is Bitcoin ripping in price discovery and Bitcoin dominance collapsing, meaning while Bitcoin was ripping higher, it was losing market share to altcoins, hence alt season, right? So it was a really long-winded way to explain that Bitcoin is looking really good here, guys. Like we are, in price discovery. We broke out of this multi-month range. Little red day today on a Monday. I would not be worried about it. Like probably even reverse it later this week. Like I'm pretty convicted in that this is a breakout. This does not feel like a deviation. For me to consider this going back down, we'd probably have to see like, losing this diagonal. We'd probably have to see like sub 112, 111, but I don't even really think it's worth talking about at this point. Like, I think we look really good. With Bitcoin dominance looking as heavy as it is, it's a very premier altcoin setup, guys. It's a very premier altcoin setup. And similarly, the last Bitcoin range that we had, it was a very kind of temporary altcoin outperformance against Bitcoin. But we were in a similar range here for Bitcoin. So like here was your range. And then Bitcoin breaks out of the range aggressively. And then what did you see here from Bitcoin dominance? Once Bitcoin sticks the landing, you saw altcoins begin to outperform, right? So Bitcoin breaking higher, but Bitcoin dominance going down. That means that altcoins were outperforming Bitcoin. So let's look at others, which is just your shitcoin index, okay? We'll take some percentage gains because I really want you guys to understand this chart. When you understand this chart, the other ones that come after will make a lot more sense. And I know some of you probably do, but just hang with me. We're almost done, okay? So we'll look at this right here, and I'll change this to orange so you guys can track this easily, no problem. Okay? So Bitcoin dominance up top, Bitcoin in orange, others, which is your shitcoin index in blue. Bitcoin breaks out into price discovery, and from that point forward, Bitcoin goes up 45%. While from that exact same point on the chart, I measured from roughly here, altcoins went up 128%. Okay. So I think we are setting up for a bigger version of this move over here. This range looks distributive. Bitcoin looks very good here. Altcoins look like they're still floored out, kind of similar to how they were over here, like this little bottom accumulation range, like they haven't even really broken out yet. We're about to. And I think what you're most likely going to see is Bitcoin dominance take a huge puke, at least to this range low. You're probably going to see Bitcoin continue higher, okay, which is the most important thing in the market. And then what you're likely going to see is altcoins dramatically outperform whatever Bitcoin does, okay, dramatically. We can talk about targets later, I guess. But all that matters right now is that you understand that there is a potential major altcoin rotation that is on the horizon, okay? That's the point of me showing you this. So I spent a whole 10 minutes just setting the stage as to why I think focusing on altcoins here right now more than ever has made it will make a lot of sense in the coming weeks, okay? So let's clear this up a little bit. Now that we covered this, now that you've understood, you understand why I'm feeling so bullish on altcoins here specifically, it has to do with the Bitcoin dominance chart. Now we can move over and talk more specifics, right? So allow me to set the stage just a little bit more, and then we're going to get into the specifics and actually talk about the meme coins and the plays in which I'm watching, okay? So let's look at this here. So we are going to look at total, and I'm going to redraw all these drawings from earlier so we can do it live. I don't care how long the video is going to last. It's going to be great, okay? So this right here is total divided by meme C, okay? Total divided by meme C, okay? Now what the heck is this chart showing us? So this is total, meaning it's everything in crypto, the entire crypto asset class, divided by meme C, which is the top 100 memes by market cap. It's got Pepe, Doge, Shiba Inu, it's got Andy, Wolf, Brett, Apu, SPX 69. It does all the memes, Mog, all the top 100 memes, okay? So what does this chart mean? When this chart is moving up, it means that your memes are losing market share to the rest of crypto. It's better to just hold random large cap L1 altcoins and Bitcoin, okay? When this chart's moving down, it means that it's better to hold extreme beta. It's better to hold your memes, rather than any fundamental projects than Bitcoin. You're going to get outperformance, okay? So we want this chart, if we're playing meme coins, we want this chart to drop and drop hard. Now let's do some high time frame analysis. For reference, this is a 2-day time frame. This chart goes back to 2014, okay? Now let's mark it up a little bit. So back in the previous cycle, what we saw here was a pretty distinct trend line forming, okay? We saw a pretty distinct trend line forming. We could maybe argue like this was some sort of range, right? But when this trend line broke over here in January of 2021, right? You had all these tags on it, months and months of annoying price action. You saw a pretty manic move, okay? And then you kicked off meme season, right? And if we look specifically, let's pull up Doge here because Doge was, the leader last cycle for meme coins. You can see that it lines up perfectly with this drop, right? When Doge starts pumping, when meme coins start pumping, they crash to the top side. When total divided by meme C breaks down, that's when meme season kicks off. So look at when this trend line broke. It's not a coincidence that that's when Doge, right here in January of 2021, went up 10,000% in 3 months. Okay, that's meme season. What we've seen so far is not meme season. Okay, so let's just do this. We'll call this range number 1. Okay, we'll call this range 1. Range 1. Okay, we broke down from this trend line in range 1 and we had meme season. Okay, I can get rid of Doge for now. Okay, now we're clearly in range 2 right now. All right, we are in, without question, we are in range 2. Very, very simple. Now, there's a couple different ways to look at this, and this is how I see it. This to me feels like we kind of broke down already within range number 2, and we had like a little mini meme season, okay? Mini meme season. Now let me pull up Pepe down here, okay? So in my view, my whole cycle thesis has kind of been around this idea that Pepe is kind of the Doge of this cycle. It's leading in volume. It's the new hot meme. It's treated us very, very kindly so far. So looking specifically at range 2 here, this is our cycle range, okay, for total divided by meme C. You can see we kind of had like a little interim breakdown where it's like you can make the case we had this trend line here. We broke down, Pepe marked up like 10x, right? Looking great. But we didn't really break down out of range 2. Okay, we've just kind of been like, we broke down, like had a test pump, right? But we didn't see like a 10,000% move like Doge had over here, okay? Like this is really the move that we're trying to capture, is this kind of move. I mean, I'm happy to catch a 10x just like this one, but you can see the difference between this move and this little interim, test meme season move over here. They're very, very different from one another. This really puts into perspective this idea that maybe we haven't really even had meme season yet. We've kind of had like the test pump, right? You had it kind of whisper that, hey, this is going to be a cycle dominated by meme coins. Here's a little test pump. Here's a little taste of what's to come. Okay. So this 10x from Pepe was this interim range 2 move. We haven't broken down out of the range like here, like over here in 2021. Okay. So let's get rid of Pepe down here. Let's do a little bit more analysis here on range number 2. Okay. I think that what we're seeing right now is a shoulder that's forming. Okay. So we broke down here. We've kind of been forming a shoulder. I think that this trend line is going to play as well. I think this is the trend line of your shoulder. Okay. A complacency shoulder, meaning you've broken down. It's been a prolonged range. And I think when this next trend line breaks over here, you're most likely due for finally this move. Okay. Finally this move. Okay. We could do this. Just put it over here so it's clean. I'm not going to get too specific on the timing. I actually think it's sooner rather than later. But what we're really trying to capture is the move into range number 3. Okay. That's what we want. We don't want any more interim ranging. We don't want any, fake outs. We want to capture this move. Okay. This is what we're doing here, is we're trying to capture this move over here. All right. We want this. We want the breakdown into range 3. Okay. So when that happens, you're likely going to see the entire meme asset class bubble like you haven't seen before. We haven't even started the descend into range 3 yet, which is coming. We're most likely going to be doing that here very soon. But let's pull up Doge, right? Doge is the king of memes. It's, the Bitcoin of memes. For good reason. It determines when we get meme season. When we will not get meme season until Doge starts pumping, right? But looking at this here, it's pretty clear to me, like here, I'll line this up, that we're still waiting on this move. We're still waiting patiently on this move that's going to take us into the next range. Okay. So I think it's coming very, very soon. But this is what we're trying to capture. Okay, is the crazy, crazy mania move, the drop into range number 3. Okay, and of course I'll have to pull up Pepe, which is the king of this cycle for memes. Let's do this. We'll do candles, turn the bodies off, make it green, keep it nice and neat. This is where we need to spend our focus, is trying to capture this move, right? We're trying to capture the major move. And there's a pretty good chance, in my opinion, that it's coming up very soon, and I'm going to show you some more supportive pair charts as to why that is. And to me, right here, it looks like we're getting ready to break down out of our shoulder here in range 2, start the descend into range number 3, probably this month, even this quarter. And I'll show you again more supportive pair charts. I'll make a thorough case for it. And when that happens, look what happened to Doge last cycle. Doge went up 10,000% in 135 days. And I don't necessarily think that Doge is going to, do the same kind of performance that it did last cycle, but something like Pepe certainly could. How high it goes, time will tell, right? Time will tell. But I do think that something like, Pepe is poised as a small cap meme that trades like beta to Doge and beta to that of ETH, could certainly put in a monster markup, well above this current range. I mean, this feels like a giant range, but in reality, Pepe is probably somewhere in here. That's most likely where Pepe is within this broader cycle. is just getting ready for like this kind of ramp, and it's going to go crazy and it's going to go a lot higher than people think, and it's going to happen quickly. So again, the point in me showing you guys this is like, for those that think we already had the most fun out of meme season and it's diluted and it's not going to happen, to them I say we're still within a multi-year consolidative range that began to form when Doge peaked in 2021. We haven't even broken down yet. But again, when I zoom in here, this to me, and we can ignore the fractal, it won't play out exactly the same. This is a prolonged shoulder. This was meme season last year, this little tiny thing. I want the markdown into range 3, and I think it's coming, and it's going to be really fun. And this is when you make generational wealth in 90 days or less, is the blue. And it's very difficult to time, but we already had an interim breakdown. This is a complacency shoulder, and we are getting ready, days or weeks away from breaking down and joining range 3. Okay. So it will be fun to look back on this later, but hopefully I applied the proper context. We started with Bitcoin dominance looking ready. Okay. That's a great sign. So for example, we can throw up Bitcoin dominance over here. You can see that last cycle, Bitcoin dominance, the Bitcoin dominance top lined up perfectly with our descend from range 1 into range 2. Look at that. Bitcoin dominance here. I can make it orange for you guys. We'll make it nice and clean and beautiful. I started the video explaining how Bitcoin dominance looks very top to me. If Bitcoin dominance is high time frame topped and we are about to get this kind of move, then that would mean that this would be the equivalent, this range over here. That would mean probably this low, right? If we are going to get a Bitcoin dominance collapse, then that is likely going to be meme season. It's going to be dominated and led by memes, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. I started with Bitcoin dominance, then we talked about total divided by meme C. Now let's get into the specifics, okay? So we are 22 minutes in. It is what it is. It's a cook, guys. It's a cook. We're just going to keep cooking and we're just going to see where it takes us, okay? So let's talk about Pepe specifically. There was something very, very specific that happened with Pepe today, actually, that gives me a lot of confidence that we might actually be starting this move as soon as tomorrow. Now, I know I don't want to be the boy who cried wolf, constantly calling for crazy valuations and all this stuff, but at least allow me to make the case as to why this could be happening tomorrow, right? So let's do this. Let's pull up a secondary chart here. Okay. Looks like I was already doing this earlier, probably for our Discord community. Let's zoom back in and we'll take a look at the test pump for Pepe, okay? There's something pretty distinct that happens before every major pump for a meme coin. Okay, it happened with Doge last cycle. It's happening, I believe more or less right now with Pepe. Is you're seeing huge daily volume with scammy price action, okay? But more specific than that, something that happened last time around for Pepe's pump is you saw one final kind of like jeet down, okay? And what it was in my view, how I interpret it, it was a clearing out of asks. It was a clearing out of sellers and a clearing out of shorts before a big move, okay? So what happened before Pepe went crazy last Q1 was we saw this kind of breakout from our descending, trend right here. And then we saw a little cluster or consolidation. And then we saw this move. Fake pump, send it lower, and then reverse it, right? And this move served as a really useful purpose to basically clear out shorts, clear out liquidations, clean things up, and basically pave a path for this move, okay? For this. Now, what did we just see today? We saw something pretty similar where we broke out of our descending trend. We saw a little chop, chop, chop. We cleared the highs, swept back down, and I'm hopeful that this is going to serve as clearing the path for much higher, okay? So we're kind of running back the same playbook where we've clearly broken out. We did the same low time frame, little sweep, clear out, and then hopefully send. And things generally look very, very good for Pepe. I think it's right on the verge of absolutely flying. So more confluence to that is the Pepe Bitcoin pair. Similar to Bitcoin dominance, the Pepe Bitcoin pair is so important because when this pair moves higher, the market never goes down. When Pepe is breaking higher out of its Bitcoin pair against its Bitcoin pair, the whole market pumps, okay? So Pepe Bitcoin is looking very, very good here. Like, this is the Pepe Bitcoin pair. We broke out of this trend. We've got demand below us. We're just kind of slow bleeding. And that's what they like to do before they launch it, is they break it out, they pause it. Everyone who missed the impulse gets chopped up on leverage, and then they send it. We saw something, again, very similar over here. This was the huge move. Again, this is Pepe Bitcoin. They broke it out of this little falling pattern right here, chopped you up to bits for a few days before, and then they launched it, right? So when I look at Pepe Bitcoin, I say, this is not a bearish looking chart. No way. It's not a bearish looking chart. And then some more confluence. Looking at Pepe Doge. To me, Pepe Doge looks ready for higher, guys. It looks very much so ready for higher. What you have right here is a giant compression that goes all the way back to the all-time high. This blue trend line right here, it's like a rectangle. This blue rectangle has been suppressing price all the way since summer of last year. We're flirting with breaking it right now. I'll flip the chart just to kind of remove any biases. This thing is just sitting on a Cheeto right now. It's just a Cheeto in the door, meaning it's about to snap, okay? So I'm watching this very, very closely, because when this finally starts to break, and we see this thing go like, down into here, it's gonna give out. And that's when meme season begins. That's when, total divided by meme C gets smashed. That's when Pepe goes into, price discovery. I mean, we're flirting with a breakout. So it's like we are at resistance right now, technically. Okay. But I think it's going to get smashed very, very, very soon. Okay. It feels just like this region over here. It feels like we are just kind of stuck right underneath it, and we're about to smash through it and have a huge markup, okay? So Pepe Doge, and again, for those that don't know what this chart means, when this chart moves up, Pepe's outperforming Doge. When it's moving down, Doge is outperforming Pepe. Think of it as like an alt BTC pair or ETH BTC, right? We want Pepe season, and we should benchmark it against Doge, right? Because if your meme is not going to outperform Doge, then just hold Doge. It's safer. It's just like if your altcoin's not going to outperform Bitcoin, just hold Bitcoin, okay? So there we go. There's Pepe, okay? Kind of bringing it full circle, we're going to talk about Andy, right? Which is more or less just, it's identical to Pepe, right? So let's do this. So here's Andy. Andy is just in a giant consolidation range. That's all that this is. People like to overcomplicate it, right? But it's really quite simple. Like, this is your range right here. Range low, range high, mid-range. When meme season happens, Andy's going to be marking up into a new range, okay? Just like Pepe, just like Doge, and it's gonna line up perfectly with, total divided by meme C, okay? This is one giant range. You've got a ton of runway with this chart, okay? So looking at Pepe then down below, I'll show you how similar these charts are, and I have to just modify the y-axis. It's a trading view thing. I don't really understand why it's still a problem, but nonetheless, we will fix it. So Andy up top, Pepe down below. These charts are basically identical. Like, every high time frame pivot is the exact same. I mean, it's like, here's the top, here's the top, here's the other top, here's the other top, here's the bottom, here's the bottom, here's the recent bottom, here's the recent bottom, local top, local top. We'll drag this down as well. Trend line breakout. Andy had a trend line breakout. I mean, it's the same chart, right? It's just when Andy pumps, it will pump a little bit harder, right? So here's Pepe from this wick low to this high, 400%. And, Andy from this wick low to wick high was 630%. So it's levered Pepe is what it is basically. And, sometimes you get more outperformance than others, but, here 319% for Pepe. And, from that wick low here on Andy, it went up, 10x, right? So sometimes it's like 2x, sometimes it's 3 or 4x. Just kind of depends on overall market conditions. But, if we're expecting Pepe to, mark up here into, a new high at some point here soon, could go up 5, 6, 7, 10x, something like that. I would expect dramatic outperformance into this new range for Andy. So it's really just, again, it's a levered bet. It's an on-chain levered bet without having to actually use leverage or margin to bet on Pepe performance. And, the trend line that really matters here for all the members of the Boys Club, it's this one, right? So I'll draw this line here, this line in the sand here for Pepe. It's this diagonal, right? When this diagonal breaks is when, things are going to get pretty nutty, okay? Andy has the exact same trend line. It's identical, right? It's the exact same chart, which is why I'm so bullish on Andy after all these months, is just knowing what's most likely to occur. Most likely to occur with Pepe, which is down below, Andy up top. It's the same chart. It just moves more. And like, even off the local low here, right? So Pepe went up 200% and Andy went up 330%, right? So it's like, okay, if Pepe even goes back to the all-time high, that's 140%. If Andy goes back to its all-time high, that's potentially 450%. So you can see, time and time again, the outperformance that Andy will have against something like Pepe, right? So Andy looks tremendous here. It looks the exact same as Pepe. If you're bullish on Pepe, then by proxy, you are bullish on Andy because it's the same chart and it has been through good times and through bad times. It's really quite simple. Now, looking at the Andy Pepe pair chart, there's a couple things that I think we should talk about here. So this is Andy paired against Pepe. What does this chart mean? Okay. What does this chart mean? Well, when this chart is moving down, it means that Pepe is performing better than Andy. When this chart is moving up, it means the opposite. Andy's outperforming Pepe. We are in my opinion, a giant bull flag here for Andy against Pepe. Okay, it's really quite simple. Look at this trend line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tags on this trend line holding your range low for right now. Okay. Now, when this breaks out is when you're going to see Andy dramatically outperform that of Pepe. Okay. Which I know is a bold claim. It's very, very difficult to outperform something like Pepe. It's the king meme of this cycle. But this pair chart gives me confidence that this trend line is not by accident. There is sophisticated, smart capital that is pair trading Andy and Pepe back and forth, sizing into Andy when Pepe is about to move for that arbitrage, for those boosted gains. And when the market's going to pull back, they swap Andy back into Pepe and we reject off this trend line. It's not a coincidence or a conspiracy that this trend line going all the way back to April of last year has 6 tags on it, and we're in a giant bull flag right here. So what would my targets be for something like this? I mean, you could more or less view this like a giant range, right? I would say target number 1 would probably just be, getting back into the range high region. This is a market cap valuation chart. So our y-axis right here is 0.07, which is 7%. So just real simple. If let's just use a round number. If Pepe goes to 100 billion and Andy Pepe pair chart is back at the range highs when Pepe's at 100 billion, that's a 7% market cap valuation relative to Pepe, meaning Andy would be at 7 billion. Right now, Andy's at 70 million. Okay. So just think about that, right? Now, again, I know a lot has to happen. You're going to need Pepe at 100 billion, which seems like a lot. I mean, Doge went to damn near 100 billion 4 years ago. 100 billion ain't what it was 4 years ago. So again, things can change really, really quickly. What I cared less about the targets, although my targets remain unchanged, and I think that Andy will go into the billions. Because of what Pepe I think is going to do, and the pair chart looks very bullish. And it's more about just recognizing that this is in fact a bullish compression. It's not a conspiracy or coincidence that this trend line has 6 tags on it, and it's just coiling for a move higher. So in the short term, what could you expect on this? This is nothing that I would try to position around. I think you just buy both and hold. In the short term, I could expect something like this, right? There is this kind of little like walk up happening right here. I do anticipate that when Pepe finally breaks higher and starts moving, you'll probably see Andy Pepe put in a move like this back to the range low. And then from there, I think you're going to see things change really quickly. And I think you're probably going to see this trend line break sometime in like August after Pepe like really definitively sticks the landing. It's going to start pushing this month, I think. I think this trend line will break, and then from there, I think it's more or less clear skies to range high, okay? So I think when Pepe gives that first impulse up, which should happen very soon, you'll see a quick dip, gets bought back up, we break out of the trend line, we move, okay? Let's talk about Wolf. Wolf has more or less the exact same setup as Andy. Damn near identical, which is pretty funny. But Wolf is in a giant reaccumulation range as well. So here's your range high, range low, mid range. It's really quite simple, and it's got that same exact diagonal trend line that that Pepe has. It's right here. I don't even need to redraw it. You guys should remember it from the last example. But this is just Wolf USD, same exact trend line, same everything. It's starting to, curl higher just like Pepe is, it's really quite simple. So it looks tremendous. Retested demand right here. It looks ready to go, right? And if we flip this chart to remove any biases, it looks just like it's floating in no man's land. It's just like you broke down, you're chopping. And I would say even as soon as this week, Wolf should really kind of find some legs here. And Wolf is going to have the exact same kind of feature that Andy and Pepe have, where it's going to most likely find a new range up in here, which is significantly higher. And it's got the same dynamic that Andy has that I just talked about, where, for example, this move over here from this low, Pepe went up plus 300%, and Wolf went up 1900%. Okay, so this is beta to Andy as well. Like Wolf moves the most neurotically and spastically, the most turbocharged beta of all of the boys club, as it should, because it's the lowest market cap coin. You inherently take on more risk by buying something that's a small cap. And for that risk, you expect more return, which is precisely why people are playing Wolf. It's a fantastic project. Their marketing is premier top tier. They've got a lot of big listings. They have more coming soon. And it's just turbocharged Pepe is what it is. The charts are identical. So Wolf looks great. But what I'm most excited about, kind of moving quickly here, is let's move over to the Wolf Pepe pair chart. Very similarly to Andy, it's just a giant range, right? So real simple. When this chart moves up, Wolf is outperforming Pepe. When this chart moves down, it's the opposite. Pepe is outperforming Wolf. To me, this is a very bullish looking range here. This range goes all the way back to summer of last year, June of 2024. This is one giant reaccumulation, and I expect this chart to go back to the range high at minimum, but probably even break out to new highs. I could see something like this playing as well for Wolf, just because it has so much beta, where I think it will probably overshoot. which is a big deviation above the range high, probably even going in here. So this is a market cap pair chart. Back to range high, looking at the y-axis, this is 0.029%. Okay, so let's say about 3%. That means that back at range highs, Wolf would represent about 3% of Pepe's market cap, depending on where Pepe is at that moment. If Pepe goes to 100 billion and Wolf is at the range high, that would be a 3 billion market cap valuation for Wolf. If it overshoots and goes up to this gray box, that's about 5%. Okay, so 5 billion if Pepe's at 100. And again, you could debate me and be like, Pepe's only going to 20 billion or 10 billion. I don't really care. I like, that's fine. We could debate valuations. They don't really matter at this point. We just recognize the conditions to be long or to be, short or sidelined. Okay. I think it's time to be long. It's time to bet on upside and appreciation of beta against alpha. Whether it goes to 10 billion or, a trillion, it doesn't matter. Let's just focus on the valuations. I'm just using 100 billion because it's an easy number to kind of extrapolate out. Okay. If we were to extend to the 1618, that would be 8%. Okay. So this is a bullish reaccumulation of Wolf against Pepe. I think it's going to go back at minimum to the range high, which is 3%. And we'll take it from there, right? We'll take it from there. Now, let's talk about another coin that is very, very interesting to me. One that I haven't talked about much on this channel before. But I want to talk about Fartcoin. And it's actually kind of two things, right? So this is base Fartcoin, but we're also going to talk about Sol Fartcoin. Okay. Now I know it's funny. I'm a grown man talking about investing in something called Fartcoin. I've said this numerous times. People will time and time again inaccurately, kind of and unfairly stigmatize a crypto asset because of its name. They say, oh, it's a Fartcoin. I am a sophisticated investor and I am too smart to trade something like that. What a silly name. That's for children. Well, this is a $1 billion asset that's bringing in 9 figures of daily trading volume. You could call it donkey poop coin if you want to. It doesn't matter. At their core, what meme coins are multi-deca-billion-dollar liquidity pools to trade back and forth. That's all that they are. They are derivatives of their L1, and they are just billion or deca-billion-dollar liquidity pools. So this one happens to be a liquidity pool on Sol called Fartcoin. And I think people will ignore this and fade this to their own detriment. Now, I'm not going to get into why I actually think it's a good meme. I'll quickly say I think it's so polarizing that it's like you just can't ignore it, right? And it has such a way of capturing the mind share of media that you just are forced to talk about it. Like mainstream media will cover Fartcoin and be like, oh, Fartcoin's at $1 billion valuation. And it's like, they called us kids. They made fun of us. They said crypto's worthless. And this is almost kind of a meme to shove it back in their face and be like, we're going to force you to talk about something called Fartcoin. I think the narrative is hot. Honestly, it's hilarious. I get why a lot of people would be turned off by it. It took me a minute to kind of digest it myself, but I care about the trading volume more than anything. And this thing is doing a lot of volume. Right. And volume is the key. That's it. Volume is the key. Buying, selling, trading, accumulating, distributing. That's what this is all about. So Sol Fartcoin, I think, is here to stay. We're going to go through a few pair charts, and then we're going to talk about base Fartcoin, which is, as a beta junkie myself, I can't turn away from something like base Fartcoin. And before you scoff and roll your eyes, allow me to make the case. Okay. Allow me to show you the technicals as to why. Okay. We don't have egos here. We don't have egos. We don't have pride. We're just investors. We're just trading. We're looking for edges and correlations, things that maybe not everybody sees, right? So for one, Sol Fartcoin, I just kind of went into the narrative, right? But really simple, high time frame range. I think this is just some sort of bullish pattern here kind of forming as you're pressing into all-time high supply where I think it's in the early stages of a breakout, right? You've had 1, 2, 3, 4 tags on this trend line. You just kind of flipped it. You're kind of doing a little chop today. I think this is just sort of a launch pad before we move higher. You could view this as a range right here. You're trying to break out of this consolidation and probably blast to new highs here very soon. Okay, so Fartcoin looks good. Okay, let's look at a few pair charts here. So here is Fartcoin against Pepe. Fartcoin is actually one of the only coins out there that I think there's a case to be made for short-term outperformance against Pepe. To me, this feels very much so like, some sort of head and shoulders pattern that's trying to form here. You've got this diagonal trend line across the highs. I could see in the very short term this being like a, inverse head and shoulders, sweep the range high, and then Pepe outperforms from there. And that wouldn't be bearish for Fartcoin. It would just mean that I think Pepe would, outperform it. This pair chart could bleed and Fartcoin could still go much higher, right? Just to be clear. So when this chart goes up, Fartcoin is outperforming Pepe. When it goes down, Pepe is outperforming Fartcoin. Okay. So I think there's a short-term setup for some gains to be had where I think Pepe is going to rip. And I think that Fartcoin could outperform by, maybe a 2x, something like that. But short-term outperformance. Now let's move over to this chart. This is Fartcoin paired against base Fartcoin. And real quick, there's a Fartcoin on Sol, which is the big one. Okay. And then there is base Fartcoin, which is technically a different project, but on base, right? So it's more or less on Ethereum. Now here's the thing about it. Okay. I have the view that there's one Fartcoin, okay? There's one Fartcoin and there's just 2 liquidity pools, okay? And let me show you why I believe that, right? Fartcoin wrapped ETH. Okay. So if you look at these charts together, you have Fartcoin up top and base Fartcoin down below. It's the same chart. It's basically the same thing as Andy Pepe or Wolf Pepe. It's really quite simple. Like they move together. They bottom, they top together. They bottom together. They roll over together. They accumulate off the lows together, right? Little discrepancies here and there, but in my view, I view it as there's 2 Fartcoins. One is on Sol, one is on base. But there's really one Fartcoin. The charts are the same. It's no different than Andy Pepe, Andy Wolf, right? There's a lot more evidence to show that that is the case. So I'm looking here at specifically base Fartcoin because I think there's a major arbitrage opportunity and a major catch up, okay? So looking at base Fartcoin real quick, then we're going to go back to the pair chart. Huge demand zone right here, mega demand. Logarithmic mode floating above your mid-range. Just had a local breakout right here. I think that this chart at minimum is going to your log 618 at 425 million. Okay, right now it's at about 40. So I'm looking for this thing to go at minimum probably about 10x from here. Okay, this feels like one giant consolidation, one giant reaccumulation. One thing that I love about this chart is that it doesn't really have a lot of bag holders because it's a new project. It was born here in, December of last year. You don't have guys that bought up at, 800 million and rode the thing all the way back down and they're just praying to get out at break even. You don't have that to worry about with base Fartcoin. Like I can make the assumption that if anybody bought up here, they probably already panic sold, right? You've got a lot of fresh holders here. Okay. So I really like that. That's kind of a side note, but let's talk about the arbitrage opportunity here. So this right here is base Fartcoin divided by Fartcoin, okay? What we have here is a giant range, okay? So when this chart is moving down like this, that means that Fartcoin is holding up better than base Fartcoin. When it's moving up, it's the opposite. Base Fartcoin is outperforming Fartcoin. Really simple. Now, when I look at this chart, I say, okay, clean double bottom here, right off of high time frame demand. Right here, secondary high time frame demand. You've had a shift of market structure right here, and you're just reaccumulating before higher. Now, if we're bullish on Fartcoin and we think it's going to make a new high, potentially even outperform Pepe by a little bit, a move back to the range high here for base Fartcoin paired against Fartcoin is 150% move. So if we think that Fartcoin is going to pull a 3 to 5x or something, base Fartcoin is going to potentially double, triple, quadruple whatever Fartcoin does, given the pair chart setup. Okay, I think it's a really unique opportunity, very, very similar to that of Andy and Wolf against Pepe, where if you're looking to kind of turbocharge your gains, take on, an on-chain levered bet without the risk of liquidation or contango or any of the things that kind of typically hinder, and decay a beta play. I think that this chart is primed for higher. To me, it looks very much so like you are back inside of this range after double bottoming, shift of market structure. I would expect this to go back to the range high, which is, again, given the whole setup with, we already talked about Bitcoin dominance getting ready to go down. Pepe looks like it's going to rip. Fartcoin looks like it's going to go higher. Base Fartcoin paired against Fartcoin looks like it wants to go back to range highs. Like, I believe I've properly set the stage as to, why we're going to go higher here most likely. And, this is a good beta option. And again, take your ego out of it. Take your feelings of the name out of it, right? It doesn't matter. These are liquidity pools. These are pair trades, right? These are multi-decamillion and billion-dollar liquidity pools to trade back and forth against each other and look for opportunity. And that's precisely what you're staring at right here. This chart looks horrible flipped, right? So just to remove any biases, this is like, why would you not want to just hammer this thing down? I mean, this is a huge gain. We're not talking about, a 10% move here. What we're talking about is a 2, 3, 4x against something that's probably going to rip a lot higher from here. Okay. So I think that it looks really, really, really interesting here. Now let's actually jump over to the terminal here. MOG has been one of the top performers as of recently, and we're going to take a look at it on terminal here. And we're going to go over, why MOG is actually so important, specifically for some of the other bags that I've talked about. So I use MOG more as like an on-chain signal than anything. And I'm going to show you exactly why that is, okay? So looking at MOG right here, guys, MOG has actually done something very, very interesting that I think a lot of people are, kind of sleeping on this cycle. And MOG has actually had a way of leading the on-chain markets. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So let me use our compare function here on BB terminal, and I'm going to throw up Pepe down below. Okay. So here's Pepe down below. Here's MOG up top. And something that I want to point out is over here, you can see that MOG actually had a way of leading. Let me actually just change it into market cap here. So MOG actually had a way of leading Pepe into price discovery. So it's a very interesting dynamic where MOG last, I guess we'll call it like last kind of cycle, right? It was really like a year ago. MOG ripped here quite aggressively. MOG ripped, 400% right here. While Pepe still hadn't even moved off the floor. Okay. So MOG actually led Pepe on this breakout. Like you can see right here, MOG breaks out, starts moving higher. And then after MOG breaks out, you can see Pepe then caught a big move. So what are we seeing right here right now? Very similar structure. Here's MOG up top. And here's Pepe down below. MOG is once again leading Pepe. That doesn't mean it's going to necessarily outperform it, because that's actually not what we saw last time. We simply just saw it lead, right? So you can see very clearly here that MOG's already above this local high that was set on the 23rd, where Pepe still is not. And that's actually something very similar to what we saw over here. Super similar dynamic, which was MOG breaks out first, smaller coin, on-chain, monster, and then Pepe catches a big rotation. So that's something that I'm actually watching very closely over here, and I'm saying, okay, this could be the exact same thing that we saw, last cycle, is that, and I say cycle, it was like a year ago, right? But, MOG is already, above its high, and Pepe is not yet. So there's another potential, major catch-up play that is brewing. And I believe that MOG is, from a market structure perspective, actually just leading that of something like Pepe. Now, let me actually even go over here, and I want to show you guys one of my favorite indicators. So this is a custom script that we have here as, part of our terminal. So this is something that I made. And that's the best part, is that this is a DEX feature that, now that we have our own, DEX built out here on BB Terminal, you can see like all these custom scripts that we have, and you can't get these anywhere else. So this is our buy and sell fast. I coded this myself. I'm going to make a couple modifications to this. So we're going to change this to SMA. We're going to get rid of net buy volume. Get rid of the candle highlights. We're going to show buy volume, show sell volume, and show total cumulative volume. Okay. Now I want to go over some of these pumps and show you like what has happened during previous pumps. Okay. You can see the buy volume is in green, the sell volume is in red, and the total volume is in blue. So when we get these huge pumps, like Pepe went up from here, like, during this move, it went up like 10x, okay, in like a month. You can see it was met with huge volume, where buy volume was greater than sell volume, and total volume was, going crazy. And the top was in when volume started to drop, right? What happened over here during this Coinbase listing pump was basically the same thing. You can see the huge volume that came in, green line above red line, more buyers than sellers, with huge volume climbing up. When volume starts to drop off, it's a good sign of a top. What we're seeing right now is the very beginning of a move, right? You're seeing the green line above the red line, so more buyers than sellers. You're seeing total volume climbing again, okay, which is a good sign. But you can see very clearly here that compared to the previous two pumps, I mean, look at the like this was a real pump. This was a real pump. We're still on the floor over here, guys. We are literally on the floor. Like, look at where we are. We're in like a nothing region right now. We haven't even had a real pump yet. This little move on Pepe is nothing. When you start to see major buy volume like this, cumulative volume or buy volume come in, this is when a real pump is happening. So for those that are like, oh, we've already pumped, like, it already happened. I mean, our custom script here on BB, I designed this to help guide you through these mania phases in the market to gauge, like, hey, what's actually happening? It gives you X-ray vision into like what's actually happening. So we're seeing the early signs that we want to be seeing, which is total volume moving up, right? So there's real volume coming in. It's still very muted compared to these previous two pumps. So we are seeing volume trending up. The green line crossed the red line, meaning more buy volume than sell volume, while total volume's going up. That's good. Similar to what we saw over here, right? Trending up, more buy volume than sell volume, but we haven't seen the big volume yet. Just like over here, put this in log mode so you can see it. Started to see volume creeping higher, more buyers than sellers, very, very similar. And then you finally get that rapid expansion. So this is just my way of showing like, hey, the pump hasn't even it hasn't even happened yet. Like look at the chart. These are real pumps. This is like we just started, man. We just started. Like we're on the floor right now. Okay. And you can use this script on any indicator, right? You can use it on or you can use this script on any ticker, guys. It doesn't matter. So anyways, just wanted to end with that. Guys, thanks so much for being here. That is it for today.